Welcome to Cujo Sound, and this is the second video about sound design application tests within the game audio industry. This is the second video, like I just said, and if you haven't seen the first one about how such a test should be handled, or could be handled, then go ahead and check it out in the link above or the link that I've put in the video description. When I was starting out trying to get a job in the game industry, I made a lot of very typical redesigns of videos. In particular, back in 2005-6-ish, when I was applying for the first time at IO Interactive in Copenhagen, through some of my deaf friends who worked there, I was lucky enough to get a conversation going with the person in charge of hiring people for the sound department. Oddly enough, that was an animator, but that's a different story. But this is around the time when Hitman Blood Money had just come out and they were working on Kane and Lynch. After the talks with the sound department guy there, it took what seemed like forever before I heard back from them again. So I kept bugging them and asking them what was up. Then I took the original Hitman 2 trailer and redid that one. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of it any longer, so I can't show you. That video sort of sparked their interest, and that was the whole point. I was told that they would like me to come into their office and do a little sound design test. First and only time ever in my career that the test had to be done at their actual office. So before I went to that test, I made a version of a different Hitman intro video, both for practice, but also to hope that they would see my talent through that video before the actual test, so that they would take that into account when they were to make up their mind. After that, I went to their office in Copenhagen and I did the test. It was some footage from Hitman 2. A scene with the priest being kidnapped by two guys in a car. They were all dummies, so this wasn't actually the footage from the game. No, this was like the dummy animation recording that they had. I was placed in a studio room with a Pro Tools session with the video in it. I was quickly shown how their sound library was connected, and I had to finish this one scene. It was about 30 seconds long, and they wanted 30 seconds more than that to be filling out the blank screen that was after the actual animation, just to see how I would deal with sound when there was no image. I don't know if you know, but 1 hour to do 30 to 45 seconds of video in a studio that you don't know, with a library that you're not acquainted with, and no other tools, microphones, or whatever, is just stupid. But here is the classic situation that I want to tell you about, and this was the learning experience for me out of all this. Right before the test started, they said, it's just to make sure that you know your way around Pro Tools and have an overall idea of what is going on here. So I spent the 1 hour doing the video. Found some simple birds and background ambiences for the car scene, a car tire screech, and some punch sounds when they take over and kidnap the priest. I put it into the correct timing, some footsteps. The blank screen I solved by adding these footsteps of walking down a hallway with some reverb and making it very clear that it was a hall, and then they would start running and a door would slam and they would escape. Fine, right? Anyway, I didn't get the job. And the feedback I got was also very classic for when doing tests. At the time, I didn't know that this was a classic response, but hopefully you will understand what I mean when this video is over, and if you watch the other video as well. The feedback that I received was that they expected it to be more Hollywood sounding. Like, in your face was the exact words that I was sent in an email as a description and feedback of this video. And isn't that funny? Because does that sound like It is just to make sure that you know your way around Pro Tools and have an overall idea of what is going on here to you. So that was my first experience with responses like that the direction you get before a test might not be accurate and at all be what they actually expect. But my first experience at IO Interactive back then in 2006 was strange in more ways, because again, it was a 30 seconds of video that they expected me to do a full-blown, in-your-face Hollywood-level mix of. I dare to say that that is impossible to do in 1 hour. Anyway, let's move on. I did some more redesign of videos, like this one, the Assassin's Creed 1. The point here being that I was trying to create a video for my portfolio that would be more natural sounding and to the point instead of a massive soundscape put together. I also took a video made by one of my friends and redid the audio for that, this little funny black and white piece. Fast forward to 2008-9-ish, about a year and a half later, I was applying at IO Interactive again. This time, an actual application that actually went through, and I was invited to their office for a long interview. And they asked of me, after that, to do a specific test. The test was a video of Kane and Lynch. The task was just simply to redo it. No dialogue, no music. So I made this video. After that, I unfortunately did not get the job. They went for the other guy. They told me straight up that it was between me and this other guy, who then, funny enough, turned out to be my future lead at IO Interactive when I was eventually employed by them a few years later. I didn't receive any feedback on the video though, but I was told that they really liked it. I guess it was just a matter of taste then. Fast forward. I got employed at CCP Games in Iceland, and I started working on EVE Online, and during my time there, I was invited to a number of tests for various companies, because after some time at CCP, I was looking to progress my career, maybe find something back home in Denmark, or at least something that could push me a little bit forward in my career. Now, because I was working for a big company like CCP, I was invited to many more interviews and many more tests than ever before, which was great. But I also started to hit the wall that would sometimes prevent me from doing my best when doing such a test, simply because they would require it to be done in a few days and it would take a full-time dedication to do so. I also had both EVE Online, EVE Valkyrie to do and work on full-time, plus I had a 1-year-old child to take care of and a wife in Iceland whom I had to get along with as well, and that's not an easy task if you are to do your best for sound design tests like this. Here are a couple of examples of tests that I went through, and like I said before, the video that I received that I should be testing this on is not always from the video game they want you to actually work on. And note that I had quite a few more tests than these at various companies. These are just the examples that I remember clearly and that I have footage of. I had an application and test out to potentially work on Star Citizen. I didn't get that job, but that test was also without any specifications to what they actually expected and what they actually wanted. And when that happens, you sort of feel like you have free hands to work on whatever you want. But then when you don't get the job, you get the feeling of, I could have made it different in so many ways. Should I? Should I redo it? But at that moment, don't redo it. It's already too late. I also had one at Media Molecule. which I totally didn't have the time to do, so I just made it real quick and basically forgot all about it because it was really, really bad. But that test was actually great because it was just a piece of animated rubber moving around like a square rubber balloon, and the simple task was make this object come to life with sound. Unfortunately, I don't have the footage of that, but that was actually a quite interesting test because the task was quite clear. Make the inanimate object come to life. But then I was interviewing at DICE in Stockholm, and their test was kind of grand and took a whole week after hours to do. They had some footage from one of their games, and they said that they expected a completely different soundscape on them, so it should be nowhere near the original game. Simply, just play around with it. That video wasn't exactly optimal quality, I admit that, but I was trying to do as they asked to make it completely different from the original footage. They wanted footage also from one of their games that I should record myself, so I went ahead and bought Mirror's Edge, and made 2 videos of that. Those videos are kind of decent, I think, but they also wanted some examples of implementations of explosions, where the test was to create an explosion split into several parts, like cracks, booms, bangs, debris, and so on, and how that could be layered. So I made these wise videos for them. Those are pretty good, I think. But I didn't get that job. But I have to admit, I was also expecting competition at DICE to be quite high. Fast forward. I landed a job at IO Interactive after CCP. And when we were all unfortunately made redundant in the summer of 2017, I was having a ton of applications out. I was interviewing here at CD Projekt Red, where I work now. The test was split into 2 parts. One which was a technical wise part, which I won't share the details of. But the second one was simply to sound design the original Cyberpunk 2077 trailer, which I did, and here it is. But even after having landed the job here and waiting to start the position, a number of companies also reached out, as they do when you're usually made redundant. Specifically, Rare reached out, and I told them that I was most likely not interested in what they could offer, and I was also not available. But I agreed to do their sound design test anyway, because you never know, and it's also fun to do a test like that. I don't have any footage of it, but this was one of those examples again where the direction given and the feedback afterwards were completely out of sync. The test was twofold: 2 videos that was to be sound design, obviously of their pirate game Sea of Thieves that they were working on at the time. If I remember correctly, the sound design test was of weather during sailing, some combat at sea, and a swimming underwater video. I started the job at CD Projekt Red, and then after that received the feedback from the Rare test after I had already started, so it was kind of irrelevant. But the feedback given afterwards was super detailed, but not detailed in the way and areas that they said in the direction. The direction was to sound design the C combat, and specifically loading of a gun later in a specific scene. The feedback I received was very specific, that there was a guy on the left side of the screen that was using a broom on the floor that could not be heard, and that the gun sound wasn't like the type of gun they were actually looking for. So my question here is, were they actually looking for me to sound design a gun that they could then use in their game? Or were they looking for me to just sound design this footage and show that I know something, and then later be able to redo it with proper direction? It's kind of weird here. I have full respect for companies and sound design departments having their full right to pick the candidates that they want, but the problem here is that no direction was given as to how that gun should sound. This is a sound design test, not an audio director's position where I should give my view on how that gun should sound. And that happens quite a lot, that this may sound like a test for you to check your technical skills, but actually what it is to be evaluating your sense of aesthetics. The problem with evaluating aesthetics in a sound design test like this is that once you receive the feedback and it's very different from the direction they give or the lack of direction at all, then it can be very frustrating. I've made sound design tests where the direction was we would like it to sound more natural, but in the eventual feedback, the reaction was we would have liked it to be more overproduced and over the top, completely out of sync with the direction given. So the direction was just go nuts, we want to see your wildest skills and ideas. Feedback, we think it's a little too much. It's not in line with how we think the game should sound. For a game that is not public yet and nobody at the time had seen anything from it having the slightest clue what they might be going for. And this could be extremely frustrating. With that comment, I'd like to add that it can be insanely motivating to get this kind of feedback when there is a direction mismatch at the start of the test, because once you get the feedback, you may sit back and think, why didn't they just say so? I can change the sound of how this is in like half a day. I can even send you a new brief later today. But they don't usually want that. Your chance is already gone. So if you say that you want it to sound more natural, but what you expect is more Hollywood, give your sound designers half a day more and let them deliver Hollywood, because your direction was off. So have that in mind. If you are receiving tests for your potential future job, think about what they really want to hear. Think about what will grab their attention. Perhaps even ask an extra question or two about what kind of style are you looking for? Quite often they might actually get back to you and hint what they are looking for. In that way, you won't be as disappointed when you're turned down. Unless, of course, it's so bad and your feedback is that it's just bad craftsmanship, which I hope you won't receive feedback like that. That is it about the sound design tests that I have done myself. And as you can tell, I've been through quite a few. Some good tests, some bad tests, some tests I did really well but didn't get the job, some tests I did really poorly and didn't get the job, but also some really poor ones where I actually got the job. Thank you for watching this video from Cujo Sound. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something from it. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button. You never know what comes next. Or even better, consider heading over to patreon.com/Cujo Sound, where you for as little as $1 a month can help me sustain this channel and the time I take off from my spare time to create this material. You also gain access to a whole bunch of other things like career guidance and counseling, review of your material, feedback and discussions, and a special Cujo Sound Discord channel where we discuss and share everything game audio related, day in and day out. Patreon.com/Cujo Sound. Consider it. Think about it. I would really appreciate this support. Cujo Sound and Bjørn Jacobsen, signing out.